Hey guys, welcome back to Chris and Retro. Uh, got a video tonight. It's a little, again, I'm trying to do some different things here, but this is a little departure than what I normally do. I've done a few reaction videos, but this is one that when I first saw it, it took me back because of the personal connection I have to what was going on there. But I want to make sure I share it with you and get your thoughts about what I've observed and make some comments. Also, tomorrow morning, I have an interview with Nate Smith, a young 17-year-old kid. I know his dad through some amateur fighting. He is getting an opportunity to fight on the U.S. kickboxing team. He's at the ISKA World Kickboxing Championship in Germany. And I got him coming on the show, just talk to him a little bit, talk about his journey there. He's a heck of a young talent. I think he's a good example for young people that need to see initiative and drive. And he certainly didn't have it easy. He's doing a fundraiser right now, and I want to help him out the best I can, get some exposure to his journey, his father's journey a little bit. And with many of the guests we've had on here who really believe in getting ahead for youth, helping them understand there's other options for them. And I think Nate has done an excellent job for himself, following his dreams at such a young age. So I'm looking forward to that conversation, and we'll get that to you tomorrow. But tonight, I want to make sure that I was talking about something. It's actually been on my mind for a while. I hesitated doing this because I think this is one of those things on YouTube that it can turn quickly into a big piss and match about some stuff. And I'm really not interested in that so much as I think if I was a bigger channel, it'd probably be a bigger deal. But I'm not, where I stand on this stuff is I'm baffled by the behavior that we allow, and I think that this video that I saw really is indicative of what's wrong with society today and where we get ahead. We don't get ahead on our own merits. We get ahead based on how we treat other people. And I'll tell you, I've got polar opposite examples, and one is very personal, where I can demonstrate for you, something I thought was pretty cool. And I'll get that over to you now. So I had about a little over a year ago, was in Dulles Airport in the DC area. And I go down there a couple times a month usually. And this one particular time, I was sitting there having a hamburger in Dulles International Airport. And I look up and see this guy, and I'm like, man, that has got to be who I think it is. And because he's very distinct look, but not really well known at that time. And I'm like, man, that looks like the artist Jelly Roll. And I just kind of looking at him for a minute, and I'm not real good. Like, I am the worst. So I'm an avid Chicago Cubs fan. If you have not seen, if you haven't noticed that watching this channel, then you're probably the least observant person on the whole planet. The Cubs is probably the only team of any sporting event that I literally, that's kind of akin to me all the time. So I love the Cubs, and I have for most of my life. But I don't recognize players from the Cubs. I recognized Ron Santo one time in Wrigley Field only because I was with somebody that's pointing him out, So, I mean, these are things I'm just not that observant that way. And so to see Jelly Roll and notice it was him, I was like, that's gotta be him if I notice him. And so I walked up to him and I said, hey, are you Jelly Roll? And he said, I am. And I'll share with you a quick picture here. So there's me and Jelly Roll. This is on my Instagram, standing in Dulles Airport where I was getting my hamburger. And he had just got a flight that was having all kinds of crap going on with it. He was having a horrible day. Now, in this picture, I'm 230 pounds. He's a big guy. He's a big guy. I've lost some weight since then, but he's a very large man. So he was having a hard time on his flight and a little irritated. His co-traveler was a really nice person too. And he took the time rather than he took the time to spend time with me for 30 seconds, take a picture, and have a quick conversation. Now, the thing with Jelly Roll, why does that matter? Is just noticing an artist with tattoos on his face. That really isn't the case. Some of his lyrics at a certain stage in my life were pretty powerful. And so to meet the man behind the lyrics and see this man that was so humble, as irritated as he was, and so gracious with me. And I explained real quickly my recovery story very briefly and how his music helped me through certain workouts and things like that I was doing to get myself back in shape from it. And he was so gracious, and you could tell just genuinely appreciative that his music had that impact. Now, since then, he's blown up. I mean, he's now got in the country scene and all this other stuff's going on. But back then, he was a rapper. And back then, he was also doing his grind. He was just starting to get noticed. And he's not an overnight sensation. If you hear his backstory, he traveled in vans to shows. He opened for shows. They ground it out as best they possibly could, nickel and dimed it to the point that now they're overnight sensations. And you hear about that all the time. These hardworking people, you know, all of a sudden when you hear about them, you think they're overnight sensation. And so I like his music. I have a ton of respect for him based on how he treated me as a person. He doesn't know me at all. And he was just a really good human being. So that's my personal connection with that. So I'm going to stop sharing this real quick. And I'm going to jump into something else. So I'm on YouTube doing my little YouTube rabbit hole chase, you know, what's on next type of thing. And probably at some point between some conspiracy theory, something about giant angels and chupacabra and God knows what, I landed on this individual that has a YouTube channel that I think that it's called RedBar Rewind, but I think he probably had some other stuff going on. He definitely has a professional way about him. He's got, at least he got a nice studio and a good setup. So I think he probably is pretty solid in terms of his skill set in doing this type of thing. So it caught my eye. It was a little different than what I'd seen. And he was talking about Jelly Roll, which I thought was a little odd the way he presented it. He was speaking about how Jelly Roll was on the show. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole thing because I'm not here to rip on his channel. But he did start right out with some of the things I think that are important for this audience here that really bothered me. And I'll point those things out. So we'll just get into what it is that he was sharing here. And I think it'll start to make sense immediately. So he's acting as if he doesn't know who Jelly Roll is. So I don't know if that's true or not. And I honestly don't know if this is just some kind of a shtick he does. But I can only take it for face value for what it is. And it appears to me that he genuinely was not sure of who Jelly Roll was, and then immediately starts layering over what his version of what Jelly Roll is.
Let me show you Jelly Roll first. This is what we're talking about now. Whoa! Here he is. This is Jelly Roll. Have you seen this guy? Let me zoom in here for you. That's a bad picture. Oh, does he only do video? They're always catching, you know, their managers told them videos now get more engagement. So now everybody posts a video post, which is terrible for when I'm just trying to show you a guy's face. Look, every post is a video post. This really is perfect for my little analysis of Jelly Roll, who I think, here's the big reveal, I think he's a big, giant, fat phony.
So here you go. And that's what really set me off. And like, I'm not here to defend Jelly Roll. As I understand his history, not through any personal connections, but just as stories is told. I mean, he can certainly take care of himself. I'm not here to defend him as what he once was or what he is or anything else. He's a grown man. He's in the public light. This is the least of his concerns. But what it did do is somebody so sure can make a statement so sure. And if Jelly Roll was on the rise and this type of stuff starts kicking off, you don't know. Now, here's why it is that I have a bias towards him. His story is not an easy one. His background is not a good one. He's been in prison and had all these other problems come on. And he struggled with mental health issues like crazy, manifested itself in all kinds of things. He's now got himself to a place where he is now an award-winning artist. I mean, he is widely known. You're going to be hard-pressed to not know who he is now. That's what that man did, going through the grind to get there. And on this show, man, I co-sign that. Progress was hope for him when his mental health was telling him otherwise. In the darkest of days, hope was one more move away. He is the embodiment, to me, in terms of how his journey currently has gone, of what work does to help you through. Now, do I co-sign everything in his life? Absolutely not. Active substance use and things like that are a very dangerous thing for me to see in somebody's life that struggled. But I can't argue with the results. And I certainly can't argue with the fact that he seems to be genuine. And based on my own personal interaction with him, he was genuine.
Here's Jelly Roll. Have you seen this guy? He's a country singer.
He's not a country singer. He is now participating in the country genre.
He's Yellow Wolf. Who else is trying to do this shtick right now?
So he's saying Yellow Wolf is trying to do a shtick right now. This video was done when? 1 month ago. Yellow Wolf has been around forever, doing collaborations with Eminem and everything else. I mean, Yellow Wolf and the only similarities I would draw between the two of them really is their face tattoos. I mean, there's some rap crossover. I guess there probably is more crossover there than I would admit, but they're definitely not country artists. But what he's going to tie it back that they play this dirty redneck thing, basically, I think is where he goes with it.
where they're a country boy, down and dirty, backwoods boy. I don't really buy it from this Jelly Roll. Who else have we seen this from? I know Yale Wolf, Yellow Wolf, is that his name? Eminem found this guy. Very similar to this. And this guy's like a pop.
You know, he's right that they are. If I think through it more, I probably shouldn't dismiss that comment because, you know, there is a lot of similarities to Yellow Wolf.
Artist, believe it or not. I'll play you one of his songs, Jelly Roll. He's trying to do the whole Post Malone, but backwoods country, and everything out of his mouth is, I'm a country boy through and through. It's like, I don't know if you are. He was just on Rogan, that's why we're talking about him, and he's friends with every one of my enemies. This guy...
He keeps, so his whole shtick is he's got his whole production he's doing self-produced, and that stuff alone just kind of annoys me a little bit, but that's just, you know, that's just my own preference and probably just, you know, whatever. But I certainly am not aligned with what he's doing.
Couldn't stop praising Joey Diaz. You couldn't stop praising Sam Tripoli, I think he called him. Sam Tripoli. He couldn't stop praising Tony C. Hinchcliffe. And he couldn't stop kissing Joe's ass. Here he is. Look at that. Look at that fake face. And, you know, they get all the tattoos on there that really tricks people into thinking, oh, that must be a real musician. Oh, yeah, this is, who else did we have? We had Bubba, what was it? Bubba Sparks. Yeah. We've seen this act before. Now, the difference is with him is he sings beautiful major key pop music, and his whole gimmick is, look at this big fat country backwoods boy, but his voice is angelic. He says his favorite singer is The Weeknd. Let's show you a bit of him on JR.
So I'm going to stop there for a minute because I'm not really sure that I'm going to go too much farther with his content. You get the idea. You know, I honestly just can't watch it anymore. Candidly, it just drives me nuts. I can make my point with what we had there. Here's the thing. I think that in this country right now, we're doing this type of thing over and over again. So if we see it in politics, or if I see it, this even sounds like divorce settings where one person disparages the other. Certainly, obviously, we're seeing it here in the YouTube environment, channels versus channels, that type of thing. And it's this whole, if I say it, this is what it is. Don't get to know the other person. Don't find if there's a common ground first. Start immediately with the opposition. And apparently his big beef is that he is supportive of, well, I'm not sure if he was saying Rogan, he was against Joe Rogan, or if he was against Jelly Roll in that comment. I'm not sure, but one of the two of them, his beef with them was because they associate with people that are evidently enemies of his. I would say that probably he has a lot of enemies because he picks fights with people for no apparent reason at all. Now, if he's doing it for his channel and if it's working for him, you know, keep doing you, man. I mean, not for nothing. That's your prerogative to do. I'm obviously not an expert on YouTube at this point. I'm working to get there. My problem with what's happening here is it's reflective of how we treat people generally. You know, Jelly Roll could have, you know, some things that he's representing publicly that are not who he really is. I don't know. What I know is that for my interaction with him outside of all that, he was an authentic acting person. He was kind to me at a time when he's actually really irritated about something. He didn't brush me off. He actually just embraced the conversation and talked with me for a couple minutes. We just didn't need to do that. And that was my data point for him. If my data point for him is this guy's talk show, I think the guy's the biggest fraud ever, and he's just like everybody else and that type of thing. When actually he doesn't have anything other than his own observations of other people to make that assessment about this man. How many times do we do that? You know, how many times, even in the political environment, how many times do we say that person's a bad politician because they are associated with the parties that we don't support? Or how many times do we say that person, I'm not going to listen to the message they have of hope and help because they're associated with this treatment provider that I had a bad experience at, or they're religious, or they talk about God, or they don't talk about God. You know, if I have a family that I've seen this too, where there are people that don't necessarily believe in God that can help you get to the next level that you should be at, even if you do believe in God. They may not, you don't have to co-sign every single thing about somebody else around them to find value in each other. We all have value. We all need to seek that first. Where's our common ground before we figure out where our disputes are that we have to work through? Now, this is hypocritical. It sounds hypocritical coming from somebody like me. Of course it is, because I think a lot of us struggle with it. And somebody with my personality, of course, I struggle with that. But this has been convicting somewhat to me to say, look, when I'm dealing with issues or I'm addressing some kind of an issue, what value is it to me to go to our least common denominator, our greatest source of contention to start the conversation? I guess if my objective is to pick a fight and win a fight, then that's what I do. If my objective is to understand that there is no winners in a fight most times, and I just want to accomplish something and make progress, then I'm going to start with where's our common ground. It really is, what are we trying to accomplish? So I guess this is the next level I would say on this. Personalities like this, I generally don't co-sign, because those are the people that will pick these fights, at least from my observation. I'm doing to him what he did to Jelly Roll. There are people like that personality that I have observed pick a lot of fights behind screens and keyboards and written and gossip and stirring up trouble and everything else, but never really face that physical threat. They never deal with that face to face. And that's why they get away with it. And they can stir up a lot of trouble and cause a lot of hurt and problems for people in the most hurtful ways. I mean, physical fights you can heal out from and walk away, but they can hurt people in such terrible ways. They hurt their careers, their reputations, their relationships, and they all just to start trouble. And I don't understand why people think that's okay. They never really intend to face it and confront it and beat an enemy. They just want to be antagonistic and sneaky and snide and cause problems for people that hurt them in the most egregious ways. Careers, families, and loved ones, and all this other stuff. In the addiction community, we do this a lot to each other. This type of behavior that I just saw in this video, you'll see it a lot in the addiction community. Why? Because we're hurting. We're hurting, and the quickest way to make our kingdom be king of a kingdom, and when we have no power and no right to be a deity, is to make everybody else around us smaller. And sometimes we can only do it in our head, so we do, and then we make that come out of our mouth through disparaging comments, gossip, and other things. There's a lot about this video that bothered me. There's a lot about it that bothered me. Just me as a man and what I view about life. I guess the other part that bothers me is that it's coming from a place, this individual is coming from a place where every one of his shows, he is either lighting up a doobie, he's got alcohol all over the place. It makes me wonder how intoxicated he is when he's going out there behaving this way. And that doesn't mean much except for the fact he's intentionally doing harm to others through his content. So I'll leave you with this comments, I guess. What are your thoughts about that? Is that entertainment to you? Yeah, I guess it sort of was for me and kind of hooked me in. I'm guilty, I think, a little bit, because I was curious. And I think that as humans, we're curious. We need to be more disciplined about what we fill our heads with. What other things can we be filling our heads with other than watching somebody make comments about somebody's career, diminish their rise, all for, I'm uncertain what, maybe just to be mean. I don't know. Maybe he's unhappy with his life and that's what he does. So it bothered me. I figured if this would be a good place to address it, because I felt like the behavior mirrored a lot of what I see today. I see it in the recovery community. I see it in our just general populations. You go to a family reunion and people are doing it with each other over politics. We've come to a place where we aren't actually trying to accomplish anything. We're just trying to cause problems for somebody else that we don't agree with. When in fact, most times with most people, you can find common ground. I'm sure this individual does this show, that if he were to be alone with me and he and I were just to have a conversation and just go across a number of topics, I'm sure we'd be able to find something that we reasonably agreed with if both of us were willing to find that place. I think that's possible. And I think it's possible actually in any interaction. If both parties or the multiple sides of any situation are really just trying to accomplish the objective of making things better rather than, causing a problem. But again, I recognize that if you got a YouTube channel, that the whole point of it is to start crap with people, which maybe that's what the channel's point is, then I guess that's the right way to go. From my vote, whether Jelly Roll needs it or not, I think he was a cool guy, and I thought it was cool to meet him, and I hope he has wild success and that his life is sustainable, and that he becomes a legend of the game, because I think that he earned it. So Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. Please make sure tomorrow you check out what we're doing with Nate. Man, I'd love to see that kid get what he's looking for. He's worked hard, 17 years old. He's working harder than most 17-year-olds do to get the goals that he's looking for. I mean, he's going to represent our country in Germany in kickboxing. And man, I'm happy for him. Happy for his dad. Means a lot to his father. It's victory in a home that's had a lot of stuff they've had to go through. So support them. When you see the GoFundMe, I'll have that on the channel. Please make sure you spread the word. He needs about $3,000, I think, to get what he needs to finish off his expenses. And I'm sure they would appreciate that very much. So, guys, thanks so much. Consider what you're watching and supporting. If you're getting involved with something where somebody's just intentionally just ripping people down, and you don't see anything of any greater good in this content, consider where we are in this world right now. How much more of that do we need? We need people that have solutions. We need people that are willing to find ways through things, even when there's disagreements. Make sure you're one of them. Make sure that you're trying to find common ground in your greatest enemy and see what you can do to work out any problems you have going. I think that's the only way we're going to ever get to a place where things start to heal. So anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. And until the next time we speak, please stay out of trouble.